Do you want to start with the because I can get the roundtable guys on in about 20 minutes. Do you want to start with the K100 talks and we can get that done?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me just real quick go over that article because I didn't read it.
We'll have Joe know we're going to do this.
Have
will
Joe read it?
Then,
Okay.
Yeah, do that. Joe wants to be the next Tim Pool anyway.
Bro,
so. I don't know. You don't know who that is. It's a YouTube guy that reads articles and comments on them.
Yeah, but he gets death threats and he gets canceled and he can't do his
right.
I wish you had death threats. So I'll start it off.
Yeah.
So this week we're back with K100 talks. And Joe, what's the topic of the day? Boom.
When I was looking for topics, this is actually, I hadn't heard this. It was a surprising one. I know we hadn't mentioned it, so I figured I'd send it your guys' way. This was this one is reported by What Culture, but I've seen it other places. And
what other place did you see this at?
WrestleZone. I saw it on Twitter a few times, various sites.
Okay.
Wrestling Planet, like that. But it says titled Cody Rhodes and other AEW EVPs losing creative control. AEW's crew of executive vice presidents are no longer as heavily involved in the company's creative process, reports Bodyslam.net's Cassidy Haynes. Per the report, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks have effectively been taken out of creative, with everything now going through company owner Tony Khan. While AEW wrestlers are still encouraged to pitch ideas, Khan has the final say on what actually makes it to television. Haynes' report contains the following.
Wait, but didn't he always have the final say?
He always had the final. Yeah, I was thinking that when I read that sentence. Yeah. Haynes' report contains the following quote with a source shining a light on the EVP's new functions. Basically, they are EVPs in name only in 2021. They no longer have final say in creative or talent hiring, any of them. TK pulled back on the reins and took that power away from all. It is also stated that while Rhodes remains good friends with Omega and the Bucks, he is now on the outside looking in as far as their relationship in AEW goes. Breaking things down individually, Matt Jackson helps wife Dana maintain AEW's merchandising in his EVP role, with his brother Nick working on being the elite. Omega, meanwhile, retains a heavy role in AEW gaming in the women's division, while Cody, once an office regular, has had his input diminished. That's the end of the article. So,
what was Cody? Let me ask you this, Cody. You know how Cody, you know more about this place than I do, and they've brought you in there as a talent, but obviously to pick your brain creatively because Joe, you got to understand when Konnan, when I went and worked at Impact, okay, I went and I worked. I had to do a bunch of vignettes and everything. I don't know what Konnan was doing there. Konnan was kind of standing around. I was picking on him, going well, what do they bring you in here for? It's just kind of just to be here, wherever I see fit, kind of
well, this is what happened. This is what. No. Wait, you're getting it. Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, right.
So what happened is that I think at that time LAX had left. Okay, because since I got there, I had come up with the LAX.
You have the history. But your history in the companies, but they were gone. Right.
Right, and then I had done a little something with Pentagon and Phoenix, and then I was in this bubble, they were trying to figure out what I was going to do. While they were figuring out what I was going to do, because I gave them an idea of what I wanted to do, which they never did. Then they were thinking, oh, well, maybe Andrade is going to come in here. Because they wanted to bring Andrade and they wanted me to be his mouth. So basically what I did is I would go to the shows, and my whole thing is I would just sit, I would watch all the matches, and whatever I saw was wrong or good or whatever, I would go and I would tell the talent. You know what I'm saying? That was kind of like what I was doing.
You were like a live on-site consultant.
Kind of, yeah, right.
Pretty
much.
Because
they were already paying me, so they were like, fuck it.
Yeah. When I was there, I was going I was big joking. I want this gig. I was
I was literally doing nothing. Right.
You were and you actually had to say, hey, let me get in this vignette with Disco where he's walking around things so I can be you had to write yourself into the show because you weren't doing nothing. I was there let me do something Disco, right? But that being said,
I just felt if you're there and we're not doing something together, you're missing out on a lot of fun. And we actually did a really funny thing with Kevin Cross, remember?
Right, yeah. Right. Yeah. You told me to go in the room and
right.
So that was Don Callis, right? Okay, so here's my question.
Yeah.
So how the Impact the booking team, the influence, Don was in charge. Scott was his right-hand man. Jimmy Jacobs was the guy that was writing the show, so he was.
I would say Scott. Yeah, Scott was in charge. You're right. Yeah,
right. Scott was also in charge. Yeah, but Jimmy Jacobs was in charge more creatively because he was the one that wrote the show and hey, more hands on. But Scott was like that too. But Don was kind of like the overseer of everything. Okay, this is my idea. Like he would tell me like, hey, this is why I see like a basic thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see that. Then I go to Jimmy, give me my material, and I'd read the lines. And like, oh, this is good material, so I'll just do this verbatim, pretty much. So it's okay. But
Don basically worked with the people he liked or he saw had potential.
He needed to work with, He wanted to work. So my question to you is, what is the creative hierarchy like when you go to AEW? Well, what's the dynamic there compared to we're talking about these players that we just talked about? Tony Khan, Kenny, Cody, the Bucks. Creatively, like at the show, like what do you see their influence and input as? Like
this is what I could tell. So Chris, definitely, what are you going to tell Chris Jericho, right? So Chris, you could tell he was writing his own and he was also producing his own because he was there, giving orders.
Nobody's going to tell Chris Jericho what to do.
Right. He knows what to do. Right.
So and we trust you, obviously.
Right. That's a smart move. Let Chris do what the he wants. I'm sure he still has to tell him, hey, I want to do this. And Tony has to say yes.
Right.
Okay. Then then I noticed that like all the EVPs kind of had the same latitude that Jericho had. Not as much, but kind of had the same latitude.
So Jericho had more stroke for his creatively than they did.
Well, and he deserved to. He's been he was in WWE for how many years? None of those guys were. You know what I'm saying? He's got the experience they don't.
Right.
I think that this is what I feel that because I remember one time I was talking to Tony and he was telling me and and he wasn't trying to pass the heat. You could tell he was genuinely mad and I understood him. He was like, man, remember that exploding barbed wire match? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a fanboy. He loves this. So, he wanted to see it. He knew the fans wanted to see it. He knew it was something different. It hadn't been seen. And he told me, man, I took care of everything I needed to take care of. He goes, the one thing I handed off to somebody else was the finish. And the finish was up. And you could tell he was mad that he wasn't more hands-on with the finish. And that's happened to me too. I hate when I do something AAA and I tell somebody to do something, they don't do it right. And now everything turns out bad because he didn't do it right. But you can't shift the heat to him. You can't go publicly and go, hey, I told this guy to do this because everybody's going to go, what? You can't take an L. So you just got to stand tall. You know what I'm saying? And I think that this is what I'm thinking, that everybody kind of abused of their power, sneaking in their friends, sneaking in their own little agendas. And maybe he got tired of it. And he said, this, I'm taking over. Because the other day, and I can't get into what storyline it is yet because it's about to happen. The other day, he actually sent me. I remember when we were first, I don't remember if you remember this, Disco, the very first time Tony ever talked about our show, he actually was kind of like mad because we were bearing his booking. And he said something like, whoa, Konnan can thank me for giving him the Young Bucks storyline for AAA.
Right. Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, bro, you didn't write that. I wrote it. But I'm not going to get into a back and forth with you. Maybe you thought you did. But now he sent me a storyline that was very well done. And he goes, what do you think about this? And I was like, I like it. And he says, all right, we'll do it together. So I think he just feels more comfortable being hands-on because I think he knows he's going to do what's best for business where everybody else is hooking up their friends. They're doing what they want. They're bringing, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Why don't you send the story to me?
What for?
Let me ask you a question. Based on the history that we have and stuff, everything and all that, right?
Right.
And there's this narrative. I'm anti-AEW, the AEW market.
Right.
The fans are all, especially the ones with the AEW in their bio. They're just like, they think because there'll be a clip, Who's you will put up. They'll be in disco, and we'll specifically talk about one thing. Everybody thinks I'm burying everything, right?
Right.
Which I'm not burying everything. I'm burying.
And I'm gonna give you a good example. Let me give you a good example, Disco, because this warrants mentioning. We've gotten to a place where you can't criticize anybody or you're a hater. You've gotten to a place you can't talk bad because that means you don't like the person personally now. Okay. And I remember I was on this show. And I had buried the military, and I was in the military. And, I had these military guys DM me and he goes, that's not cool, dude. A lot of people die, all this. And I was like, hey, man.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, hey, man, the fact that I can criticize my military means I love it and I wanted to get better. I'm not just going to agree with everything they do. Every war was not just. Everything they've done, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to.
It's like you're not an imbecile. You can have an opinion on their directions, different thing, and disagree with some of the action taken. You're not a moron.
Right. And I still love my country. Yeah, I still love my country. I served for 7 years. That no love bigger than that. I was willing to put my life on the line for my country. There's no more patriotic deed than that. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm complaining the two is you can criticize AEW and still like the product because you wanted it to get better. You know what I'm saying? But they've decided to make you a pariah because everybody needs a heel now. Everybody needs somebody to hate on. Everybody needs divisiveness. And now you're one of those guys to that AEW fan base.
Here's my point. Okay, is that if you like, just let's hypothetically speaking here, like this, and this is weird because we've been in wrestling for so long. We always exchange ideas. That's the most important thing. Like I've always said in the past, like what's the most important thing a booker writer has to have is ideas.
Right.
If you don't have any ideas, you're stuck. It's different thing, but you need to have ideas. So like, do you think like if you told Tony Khan, say, hey, I ran this by Disco and he came up with a pretty good idea. What do you think of this? What do you think his reaction would be?
He would probably look at it and read it and see what it's about. I don't think he's that narrow-minded. I think he's more mad with you. Let me tell you why I think he's more mad with you. And I told you this.
Right.
He was very close with Brody, shoot, and he felt you made insensitive comments. So it's a personal thing. It's not you talking shit about his company, or you wouldn't have Lambert on there destroying them every week.
That's a good point. It's like, so I think it's funny, but here's my point: is like we talked about this, that this was a potential point of contention that they had, is that they had all the EVPs and Tony are all rookies in this position. Like they've never done this before, and they're going to go through growing pains. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to learn from mistakes and stuff and all that. But I just wonder if, like, when you get in, like, where you have different because all those guys just come across like they have just completely different personalities. Like Cody sticks out like a sore thumb in that crew. You know what I'm saying? Like he's
if you put them all together, together, they look like the Hardy family compound that they had. You know how they had the private party, Butch and Blade. You're like, they don't look like are these together?
Cody was kind of a late addition too, because those guys have been together for years. But Cody got released in 2015 or something, and then he went to the Indies and he kind of joined in with them. But he hasn't been as long time with Kenny and the Bucks as they have been together. You know what I mean? He was like
Kenny and the Bucks have the same personality, bro. Like those three go together. Cody's the one that he always sticks out like a sore thumb. He looks like a used car salesman or somebody found in the carnival back in the 70s. Hey, come right on in and watch the lady with the two heads.
And I guess Cole fits right in with them too, because he was with them for a long time.
Cole sticks out like a sore thumb too.
You think?
Bro, absolutely. When you look at that we'll talk about this in AEW. When you look at that faction standing together, and all those guys are dressed obnoxiously and trying to get over, and Cole is just there, kind of like cool looking with the t-shirt and the leather jacket.
He's the only actual cool guy in the group. Everybody else,
guy in the group.
Like
everybody's trying to be nerdy to get heat, and he is like he's just like the laid back.
I'm cool, bitch. Yeah,
right. I'm cool, baby. It's like it's like the Fonz, It's like seriously, he is, But
you're like me. I like that guy a lot. I think he's super entertaining. Yeah, he's money. He's money. Yeah.
But
you know what? But can I say something, Disco? I think I just thought of this. Here's another thing. Think about this. You're Tony, right? Mm-hmm. And you're telling Cody, okay, find me the best, and he's bringing him Shotty Lee and all these other. You don't know of QT Marshall. He's opening up his own little wrestling school to benefit him. He's getting on a reality show. He's getting his wife. And he's thinking, well, what have you really brought to me? You brought your brother, you brought your wife, you brought your friend. Okay, then he's looking at Kenny Omega, and he's thinking, I love Kenny, bro. One of the most professional guys in the world. But let's be real. All these Japanese chicks, he may like them because he was in Japan. Nobody else really does. Maybe the real hardcore fans, they don't really translate well. That tournament they had with all those Japanese girls was brutal. And he's probably thinking, well, What did Kenny bring in woman-wise?
I'm going to score these guys on their track record.
It seems like It seems like Kenny's idea and Tony's idea for women's division is radically different. I was going to say
because if Kenny brought in Britt Baker and he brought in Thunder Rosa and he brought in Jade Carter, I said all right, but I don't think he has. Then here's the one where it gets tricky for me. The Young Bucks brought in FTR, the Lucha Brothers, LAX. They don't get any credit for that.
And Brandon Cutler.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying. Here's the thing I just find interesting with the story. Okay, is that who'd you say reported this?
This was What Culture through Wrestle News or something like that.
Yeah, just like kind of the outside things. Dave's got to know. Sites. I'm just saying, Dave's got to know.
It's also been reported by Sports Kita, BodySlam.net, Cultaholic, SE Scoops.
The top companies, the top guys like Meltzer and stuff, everything haven't been reporting this. And I wonder if that's by.
But I do believe some of it. I do believe some of that is going on. There is 100% a rift. There is a rift 100% between Cody and the other guys. I can guarantee you that.
I would bet that it's reported this week. That's what I'm thinking. It's going to be reported.
And the other stuff I could see happening for some of the reasons I just gave you. Them losing power.
Absolutely. I can absolutely see it, but here's my question.
Because you as a boss, would you keep them in with those results?
I'm just wondering we're hearing rumors of a rift. The dirt sheet guys and everybody is reporting how great the company's doing. But I'm wondering if you're looking at these numbers, and even though they're touting them publicly, hey, that behind the scenes they're looking at some of these numbers and they're underwhelming compared to what they thought they would be, and that's where we're kind of getting the contention, I told you this, I told you, and we're getting that. You know what I'm saying? Because look at the number of let's call a spade. Rampage, the ratings have gone down 6 weeks in a row.
What was Rampage's number this last week, Joe?
It was 640. It was down again.
It was down.
Wow.
And I'm okay. You're behind the scenes. You're seeing these numbers. We're bragging about how great we're doing, and it's you kind of want. Okay, whose idea was this? It's blaming is the thing that happens first and foremost. Okay, because I call it that happens at my job, right? Whenever somebody gets called on the radio, hey, we have 80, one guy in front. Okay, I call these guys look-arounds. Everybody heard on the radio, but everybody else is looking around to see who's going to do it first. And nobody really steps up and answers the radio. Okay, I'll get it and everything. I just wonder if and that's my job. I've seen this in wrestling. I've seen this in my job. Is that there's a thing where people just are not really ready to accept responsibility for some of their decisions, and they kind of deflect off other people and try to blame. And it's just a constant blame game. And when this happens, this is when stories like this come out. We're getting guys saying, well, that's because they're not. Let's please call a spade. All these guys thought, when these guys came in, the buzz and stuff, that they were going to be doing a 1.5 or a 1.6. Even Joe thought they do their highest number ever for that show, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking at these numbers, and it's these numbers are not. They're good, but they're definitely not what we thought was trending. And then we're seeing the kind of stories. I wonder if that's what's going on behind the scenes. They're not pleased with the numbers.
Plus,
I just wonder. I'd like to know if that's what's driving this rift. Well, we don't know if it's true, but I'm just wondering if these guys all think they have the answers, and nobody really knows which guy does.
They did what 1.4 for Omega versus Bryan that night.
No.
They did
1.3.
No, 1.4 was their highest ever. They've never gotten.
No, I said they were going to do a 1.3 and they did a 1.27. Remember?
Okay.
No.
1.275.
Something. No? It was. Okay.
Look it up, Joe. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Because I remember that
it was down from 2 weeks before. It wasn't as high as
Yeah. You're talking about Danielson and Danielson and okay. I had said that it was a 1.3. Joe said it would be a 1.4. I believe it was 1.275.
1.273 was the Grand Slam show. That's the one I'm asking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that I'm saying if it went down to 1.152, right?
And then what was this week?
That is this week, 1.152.
What was the week before?
1.273.
Okay, what was the week before that?
I don't have that one here, but I know what you're saying. The Punk one was the highest rated one. I need a chart with all of them.
Well, what I'm saying is we would have thought.
What was we don't have yesterday's yet, right?
The Punk Cole Daniel Bryanson, the Punk Cole Daniel Bryanson debuts. We would have expected, based on the narrative that was given and the buzz and stuff, everything, that 1 month later their number would be higher. Like it would lead to positive momentum and stuff, and it hasn't. And I wonder, like, and we'll talk about things they're doing on their shows to make it kind of underwhelming and, like, stuff you can miss. And
I think one of the biggest things, and we both agreed on this, is that they didn't give Punk a main event type guy. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Yeah.
They've had over 1 million since the end of August. This is
okay. Here's my question.
Yeah.
What do we already have yesterday's ratings or no?
No. Or no, that's the one I just read. Yeah, the 1.102 or whatever it was.
So they're going down.
Yeah, this is what they had.
And you watched the show last night, and it was like a lot of this stuff I could miss.
You were asking about
this 10-man, 12-man tag is like with a bunch of guys.
I'd look like a 16-man tag.
Yeah, 16-man tag. I'm like, I could miss this. It's like Joe's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
that's even wild for Mexico. Even Mexicans were going, wow, that's a lot of guys.
And then this is the funny thing is, like, people will call us haters and everything. We're going to go and we're going to analyze that show and wonder, okay, why was the number down like this, and why do we think it happened?
Right.
Well, the Punk one you were asking about was 1.319 million, and then the Bryan versus Kenny was 1.273. So the reason I brought that up was I was going to say, if they can get 1.273 for a show that has this Omega Bryan dream match on it, then I think that's their ceiling. Their ceiling is they're not going to get above this 1.4 right now with what they're delivering. That's the biggest match they could have delivered, I think.
I completely agree.
But who knows? Maybe for TBS or whatever they're on. They're on TBS, right?
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah.
Anything over, let's say 900,000 is good. Let's just say so. They're maybe ratings wise, they're like, we're cool right now.
Well, plus,
you know we don't want to. But we don't want to.
They're at the top of the cable charts every week because cable stinks these days, so it makes.
And they got no football.
Strong indicators. No, right, exactly. So they're looking at the numbers like there's not, they're strong.
Like Raw's had to up their game up.
Yeah,
Raw's had to up their game up because of AEW and the football games.
Well, take a look at this too before we wrap up. In June, right? June 11th, 487,000. June 18th, 552. June 26th, 649. So just 3 months ago, they were doing under 700,000. Now they're doing 1.2.
Yeah, but the June shows were preempted those were preempted for playoff stuff. They were knocked off different time slots.
So March, they were still doing 688, 700, 757.
Yeah,
so
because of the pandemic. When the crowds went back live and they started touring again, there was about a 10 to 20% boost in the audience, which all the shows across the board have maintained since they've been back.
And then you got Punk and Danielson, and you got another boost.
Yeah,
Colton now.
So we'll see. All right.
All right. So that's the news. Hopefully it's correct. If not, we just talked about something.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Get in the way of a good story, right? All right. So that's been your K100 Talks. Boom.